Hurricane Ian unleashes catastrophic floods and life-threatening storm surges. We're assessing the damage and preparing you for its remnant's arrival in Maryland. Patrons at Fells Point dying inches away from bullet holes left from a shooting.
You know, nothing really surprises me right now.
Just days before a neighborhood street festival, community members share their fears for Fells Point's future. Chronic absenteeism on the rise in Maryland public schools. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore questions what's driving students away.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We're following two big stories tonight. In a city in crisis, violence strikes Fells Point, once again leaving residents and business owners frightened and frustrated.
We'll have team coverage of the crime problem coming up in a few minutes. We begin with Hurricane Ian. It's been battering Florida for hours now, heading north.
The video coming in is stunning. On the top, Live Storm's media chasers documenting the arrival and damage done. In Port Charlotte, some smaller homes were ripped apart. Punta Gorda also took a direct hit. That's on the right. Winds there topped 120 miles per hour. Flooding is also catastrophic. In Naples, a fire station had waist-deep water, so they can't rescue people who did not evacuate. Even in Tampa, which avoided the worst of Ian, massive trees were uprooted with ease.
And we're seeing some incredible images coming out of the state of Florida. Let's take a look at some of these on social media. Folks, I have to show you this one. Look at this. A person swimming, I assume, in their own house. Breaking news. Ian brings catastrophic storm surge to Naples, Florida, with water moving into houses. This, of course, dangerous. Shouldn't do that. Could be alligators in the water. That is Florida, after all. Here, at least 5 feet of water. Look at the sign here. That gives you an idea. Look at the palm trees, all that water. Right here, our property manager just sent us this video. Boats damaged, homes damaged, roads underwater. Let's get one more in here really quickly. This really shows you the damage. Roofs ripped off of homes. The water just moving debris. And again, this storm went in really fast and furious. Of course, meteorologist Amy Aronson is going to have a lot more for you coming up in just a few minutes.
That's right, Kai, and this is what we know about what's going on in Florida right now. About 2 million people are without power across the state. Officials are warning the power could be out for days. No reports of any fatalities, but of course that could change. First responders have been getting calls from people trapped in flooded homes, but crews weren't responding until it was safe for officers. States of emergency now extend as far north as Virginia. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to ask for a major disaster declaration, which allows the federal government to send money for cleanup. And we know crews from Maryland are on their way to help. Governor Larry Hogan tweeted today an incident management team made up of people from Montgomery and Prince George's counties has been deployed. Now, Hurricane Ian is one of the most powerful storms ever recorded in the United States. Let's get right to meteorologist Amy Aronson for the latest. Amy?
Yes, we check out what's happening with that storm right now. Fortunately, it has weakened some, currently producing max sustained winds at 100 miles per hour, but still a strong Category 2 storm as it now plows across central parts of Florida, taking the rain, taking the strong winds along with it. Traveling north-northeastward currently at about 8 miles an hour. Here's the details on that landfall. This happened earlier tonight at 3:05 p.m. actually near Cayo Costa, Florida, with max sustained winds up to 150 miles an hour, making it a Cat 4 hurricane at that point, with pressure coming in at 940 millibars. If we take a look at the rankings of the strongest hurricanes to actually hit Florida based on wind speed, you'll notice it makes the list. It actually ties the list for number 4 with the max sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. Now, coming up in about 15 minutes, I've got an updated look at the track of this system, and I'll let you know exactly when it's headed towards us right here in Maryland. Mary, Kai?
Amy, thank you. Now, the Maryland Department of Emergency Management says it is keeping a close eye on Hurricane Ian. MEMA says staff is ready for any impact in this area. By the way, you can keep track of conditions by downloading the Fox 45 Weather Authority app for your smartphone. Download the free app to use our powerful Doppler radar to track storms right to your street. Just search for WBFF to get started.
And of course, we'll continue to track Hurricane Ian all night long. Coming up at 10:20, we're going to take a look at the economic impact of the storm as major supply chains are threatened. Then at 10:30, we'll have a complete report directly from Florida. We'll also keep you updated on any breaking news from the storm, both on air and online.
We turn to our top story. In a city in crisis, there is fear and frustration in Fells Point after a double shooting early this morning. Mobile phone video shows medics surrounding at least one of the victims. Police say they were called to the scene around 1 o'clock this morning. A man was shot in the head and he is fighting for his life. A woman was shot in the arm. We have team coverage tonight of the crime crisis. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is demanding answers from city leaders, especially after 6 people were shot in Baltimore today. First, Jeff Abel is live with the concerns in Fells Point. Jeff?
Well, no one can quite explain it, but once again, gunfire has rocked the community of Fells Point, and tonight, one man is fighting for his life. In the heart of Fells Point today, there were signs of a very violent time. Shattered glass, damaged doors, and nearby sat 4 diners who had never been to Baltimore before.
Definitely wasn't expecting it to kind of be in the center of the city.
Male shot in the head.
It was just after midnight when bullets started flying on this block of South Broadway. When officers arrived, they found a man shot in the head and a 35-year-old woman shot in the arm. And the suspects were long gone.
They go from the south on Broadway towards Spain.
So far, there's no arrest and no motive for the shooting. But the incident is the latest in a string of attacks in this community. 3 months ago, 30-year-old Marco Nunez was gunned down while leaving a bar a block away. A 16-year-old is now accused of his murder.
Now everybody is a little bitter and angry. They come out to have a good time, but they carry their problems with them wherever they go.
We need to be outraged.
Fells Point realtor Claudia Tolles believes the city is growing accustomed to the violence and fears city leaders are doing little to stop it.
These kinds of incidents are being normalized because of their silence, because of their lack of outrage, because of their lack of action.
For now, one victim is fighting for his life as this community fights to understand why.
I'm going to keep everybody in prayer, and I hope everything works out.
All of this is happening just as the Fells Point Festival prepares to launch this weekend. Tonight, police are telling us they are preparing to assign additional officers to ensure everyone is safe. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Well, Jeff just mentioned Marco Nunez. He was a bouncer at Rodo's and one of 6 people shot in Fells Point this year. That neighborhood has also seen rowdy crowds. Back in May, a party crowd trashed the area and a fight broke out inside a convenience store while looters ransacked the shelves. And the violence this year is bringing to mind the chaos in Fells Point last summer when massive fights broke out in the square. People were photographed standing on police cars as officers stood by. There were also a number of shootings there. And the neighborhood has also seen problems with dirt bikes. Video from last summer shows riders tearing through the crowded and small streets there.
As we mentioned, at least 6 people were shot in Baltimore today. Just after midnight, 3 women and 1 man were hurt in a quadruple shooting in Northeast Baltimore. Violence was on the tops of the minds of members of City Council during a public safety hearing that had Baltimore police on the hot seat. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is demanding answers about what's being done to curb crime.
Most of the members want to know what's being done about guns and what's standing in the way from the Baltimore Police Department getting a grip on this violence. The agency says a lot of it comes down to staffing.
The violence happening in the streets of Baltimore.
Good afternoon.
The topic inside City Hall.
Homicides and shootings hurt the victims who are injured and the families who are killed or injured.
Deputy Commissioner Richard Worley fielding questions, especially about the highly demanded summer crime plan.
Do we think it was successful?
Our numbers were up slightly, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a success.
Worley notes major events in the city this summer went smoothly, but the issue of staffing resurfacing time and time again. As the violence continues, more questions about what can be done to stop the trigger pullers before they commit a crime.
What we're doing about guns.
BPD says it's working closely with federal partners to track guns in the city, while somewhat touting homicides being 1 less than this time last year. Worley recognizing it's not good enough.
Because it's still 254 lives and 254 more citizens that we lost.
This hearing comes just months after some of the same council members stood in City Hall.
People are calling our offices, crying out,
demanding BPD to step up and do more, calling the violence unacceptable.
We need foot patrol in these areas.
As 2022 continues to be on pace to surpass 300 homicides for the 8th straight year, we sent questions to Mayor Brandon Scott asking, would you consider BPD's summer deployment strategy a success? What is your plan for reducing violent crime moving forward? We saw some members of the city council call for more help before the summer started. Why does it take members of the city council to demand more and not you? In a lengthy response, the mayor's office says Mayor Scott has been vocal in working with everyone to curb violence, adding, quote, to insinuate that any person or group is more interested in the public safety and well-being of Baltimoreans is erroneous and simply misguided. The statement does not say whether Mayor Scott viewed the summer crime plan as a success. Meanwhile,
should those demands have come from the mayor?
Of course they should have come from the mayor. I will say, though, it's hard to say whether or not that conversation has been had already.
Would you describe the summer deployment strategy as a success?
I can't say that for my hearing today. I think there are parts of it, based on our conversation, that seem like they were successful. But I say by and large, across the city, we're not seeing the returns that we want to see.
BPD often touting the work being done to drive down organized crime, but the efforts from the city right now only focused in the Western Police District.
Other people are waiting, hey, when is it my turn to see this?
This isn't like giving out Christmas gifts. I want my Christmas gift. When will everyone get their gift of a perfectly safe neighborhood? I can't say. I would love for that to happen yesterday.
Conway says despite cooler temperatures on the horizon, there should be a crime plan in place for the rest of the year as well.
Some of the council members also pressed BPD about what's being done to work with the presumptive next state's attorney, Ivan Bates, to make sure there is clear communication and an understanding top to bottom about future prosecution policies. In City Hall, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, we want to hear from you. Who do you trust to deal with crime in Baltimore? The city council, the mayor, both, or neither? So far, 96% of you who voted responded by saying neither. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab to weigh in.
Johns Hopkins University's forum on launching an independent police department is going virtual tomorrow. It follows this scene last week when protesters took over the stage and shut down the meeting. Hopkins temporarily shelved the idea of forming its own police force in 2020 in the wake of George Floyd protests, but it is now moving forward with that idea. We will follow tomorrow's virtual meeting and have a full report.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, a growing trend of children skipping school in Maryland. Fox 45's Project Baltimore investigates why it's happening and what one county is trying to do to stop it. Nearly a month after that E. coli outbreak in part of Baltimore's water supply, no word on a cause. Fox 45 hears voices from neighbors as the Department of Public Works avoids our questions on the eve of a city council hearing. And at 10:30 tonight, we continue to track the monster storm in Florida, Hurricane Ian. We'll take you there for a report on the damage done and the recovery ahead.
Well, fewer and fewer students are attending public school in Maryland on a regular basis.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, alarming new data shows attendance is down and chronic absenteeism is up, especially in one school system.
Chronic absenteeism is defined by the state as a student who misses more than 10% of school, or 19 days over an entire school year. It's not just a barrier to student learning. It can also be illegal.
I mean, our goal is to get the kids in school. That's what our goal is. Our goal isn't necessarily to criminalize anyone, but sometimes to get the kids in school, you got to go to a courtroom.
According to state law, a student is considered truant when they miss more than 20% of the school days without a legal reason, or 37 days over an entire school year. Parents can be fined $50 a day or receive 3 days in jail on a first offense. Baltimore County State's Attorney Scott Schellenberger says his office is seeing an increase in truancy cases.
No, there is no easy solution. We don't like prosecuting. Judges don't like putting in jail. And even if you do put in jail, the hammer is not very big. And in fact, it is not much of an incentive at all when it comes to sending the kids to school.
Throughout Maryland, students not attending class is a growing problem. In 2019, 19% of students statewide were considered chronically absent. By 2021, it jumped to 22%. And the school system in the Baltimore region seeing the largest increase is Baltimore County.
You can see the chronic absenteeism getting worse over the quarters.
The Baltimore County School Board has recognized this is a significant problem that's getting worse.
There are lots of research to support attendance and a correlation with academic achievement.
In Baltimore County, overall attendance is dropping. From 2017 to 2020, the attendance rate held steady around 93%. In 2021, it fell to 90%. In the fourth quarter of the last school year, it was down again to 88%. And that is translating into much higher rates of chronic absenteeism, especially among elementary school students. From 2017 to 2020, chronic absenteeism in Baltimore County elementary schools remained relatively unchanged, around 14%. But in 2021, it spiked to 22%. And last school year, chronic absenteeism in elementary schools spiked again to more than 30%.
According to the data, over the past 2 years, the number of Baltimore County elementary school students considered chronically absent has more than doubled. So what is BCPS doing about it? Superintendent Dr. Darrell Williams will not interview with us. Instead, his office sent us a short statement about what many consider to be a major problem.
BCPS's statement blamed the COVID pandemic, saying it had a significant impact on student absenteeism. The district gave no specifics, but said it implemented strong preventative measures concerning COVID, along with specific and strategic support to students and families. And as a result, BCPS has experienced a substantial decrease in chronic absenteeism this school year.
Right.
Schellenberger says to avoid a courtroom filled with truancy cases, his office works closely with the school system's pupil personnel workers to find parents and get their children to class. He told FOX45 he doesn't blame COVID for the rise in chronic absenteeism because for all of last school year, the students were learning in person. He's not sure what is to blame, but he knows the numbers need to come down.
It's incredibly important that kids are in school, particularly those elementary school children who are missing so much, because that sets you back literally for the rest of your life.
I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Ahead at 10:30, we'll have a closer look at the crisis in the classroom. The organizer of Town Hall on the public school system shares the concerns parents keep bringing up, including brawls breaking out in schools.
Well, making headlines now, the Baltimore Sun is reporting a Baltimore County judge has scheduled a trial for jury in the lawsuits over control of the Orioles and other Angelos family assets. It is the latest in the ongoing legal battle among the family, which owns the team In 2017, a serious illness caused Peter Angelos to transfer oversight of the team. Now, Peter's son, Louis, claims his brother John and his mother unfairly made changes to the trust to diminish Louis's role with the team. They're also fighting over the family law firm. The Baltimore Sun reports the judge recommended mediation, citing how personal this case has become.
In Baltimore County, the park manager for Gunpowder Falls State Park is in custody. He was arrested on rape charges. Baltimore County police say 71-year-old Michael Browning sexually assaulted the same victim over a 6-month time period while working for the park. Browning is being held without bail. Anyone with information about this case or any other cases in victims is asked to call the Baltimore County Special Victims Unit. The number is seen on your screen, 410-887-2223.
Well, the effects of Hurricane Ian being felt across the nation, how it could impact already fragile supply chains.
A look at more stunning video coming out of Florida. Those stories and more right after the break.
And an updated look at the track from the National Hurricane Center shows the storm will continue to weaken as it dumps very heavy rain and produces very strong winds across central parts of Florida. The storm eventually becomes a tropical storm as it heads back out into the Atlantic, but then it's going to make another landfall in the Carolinas, dumping some heavy rain there before heading our direction. I'll explain exactly what this means for us in a couple of minutes on Fox 45 News at 10.
Well, Fox 45 News continues to track Hurricane Ian, a storm chaser capturing a side angle of the Weather Channel's Jim Cantori, nearly getting blown over by the force of the wind. In Punta Gorda, one of the gusts at the nearby airport reached 124 miles an hour. As it stands now, about 2 million Floridians have no power.
Well, the economic impact of Hurricane Ian could be felt across the country as major shipping ports, airports, and distribution sites are shut down.
That's right. And it comes during an already turbulent week for markets in the U.S. and abroad. National correspondent Audra El Nashar has a look at what could be ahead.
An economic 1-2 punch this week as Wall Street takes a plunge. About $9 trillion wiped from the stock market since the beginning of the year, the wealthiest 10% taking the vast majority of those losses. Also plunging, mortgage applications down as the average 30-year fixed-rate mortgage crosses the 7% mark this week, up more than 3 points from the beginning of the year. And at the gas pump.
The gas is already high and it's going to go higher.
Prices slowly ticking up, the national average rising 8 cents in the past week. Hurricane Ian shutting down some oil production off the Gulf Coast. President Biden insists it shouldn't impact drivers.
Only about 190,000 barrels a day has been impacted by the storm thus far. That's less than 2% of the United States daily production impacted for a very short period of time.
Supply chain expert Dr. Hakan Hekimoğlu says as long as no more production shuts down, gas prices shouldn't spike. But there are guaranteed shocks to other supply chains in the storm's path, especially in Port Tampa Bay and the I-4 corridor to Orlando.
It's a corridor that is hosting a lot of distribution centers, fulfillment centers, warehouses. So it goes beyond manufacturing.
As critical as the recovery stages for supply chains, what happens before the storm is also key, which is why Ian may be especially devastating for commerce. It intensified so quickly, many facilities didn't have time to prepare.
For farmers, mitigation options are limited. Damage to Florida's citrus crops, even cotton crops in neighboring Georgia, could be felt across the country.
I would say it is reasonable to expect a cut in the supply.
The top priority now is saving lives. The scope of damage may not be fully realized for days or weeks to come. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
One evacuation's enough. We decided we're just going to stay here and ride it out.
Well, fleeing for safety, only to find themselves right back in the path of Hurricane Ian. We'll take you to Florida with a look at the conditions tonight.
The water is contaminated. Where does that come from?
Frustrated residents demanding answers from DPW after the Labor Day E. coli water contamination. Fox 45 News makes their voices heard ahead of tomorrow's City Council hearing.
Listen to the sound of that wind. Fox 45 News continues to track Hurricane Ian, which has slightly weakened as it moves further inland. Now, the storm surge was forecast to be catastrophic, and it looks like that's exactly what has happened across the state of Florida. From Lakeland, on the top left of your screen, it's dark, but you can see that rain and wind shaking the camera.
And on the top right and bottom left, both videos from Fort Myers, one from inside a home where almost an entire first floor of that home is underwater. The outdoor video shows the scope of the flooding. A mail van, trucks, and even SUVs almost completely submerged. It is another night of hunkering down all across Florida.
Stephen Quinn from our Sinclair sister station is in Sarasota with some evacuees as it continues to rain.
It is nighttime here in Sarasota, but there are far many more Floridians to our south who are in the dark and could be for quite a while. Right now, there are more than 1 million people, we're told, in the state of Florida without power. The governor telling us 42,000 linemen right now are staged here in the state of Florida. They're waiting for this to pass so that they can get to work helping clean up and repair the damage done to this part of Florida. Dave Larson and his daughter Mia have never seen a hurricane before today. Ian forced them to leave their home in Tampa.
We get down here, and of course, all of a sudden Sarasota is, we got to get out. But one evacuation's enough. We decided we're just going to stay here and ride it out.
These parts of Florida dodged the worst of Ian, but others were not as lucky.
We're now unloading the truck.
Naplesville firefighters forced to evacuate their own trucks as the storm came surging in. Catastrophic flooding has been reported also in Fort Myers, near where Ian made landfall.
I thank God that, obviously we didn't, suffer what they did down south. So prayers are with those folks.
The impact was still real, even here. With sustained winds over 45 miles an hour, emergency crews were pulled off the roads in Sarasota County. The people who lived here were on their own.
So got 911 call takers taking calls. We have a medical doctor here for emergency situations that can offer advice on medical situations that are, significant in nature.
And even though the worst of Ian has passed where we are in Sarasota, in between buildings downtown, these wind tunnels can prove strong enough to bring down trees and cause problems for first responders, which is why even now they are still off the roads here tonight. In Sarasota, Florida, Stephen Quinn reporting.
Stay with Fox 45 News. Our team of meteorologists will continue to track this storm as it moves toward this area. Plus, Megan Gillen will have live reports from Tampa. Wake up with Fox 45 Morning News for the very latest.
And turning now to a city in crisis tomorrow, Baltimore City Council will hold its second investigative hearing into the Labor Day weekend E. coli water contamination. During the first hearing 2 weeks ago, City Council members were highly critical of the Department of Public Works communication about the contamination. Keith Daniels joins us live from City Hall. He spoke with residents about what they want to hear tomorrow. Keith?
Well, Mary, City Councilman Yitzi Schleifer has said he will hold hearings here at City Hall until all of his questions and concerns have been addressed by DPW. And tonight, residents are also looking for the agency to be held accountable. In the Harlan Park neighborhood in West Baltimore, residents recovering from water woes.
Should I drink it? Is it going to make me sick?
Some of them still unsure about the quality of the tap water in their homes, nearly a month after the E. coli water contamination scare in the community.
I will not drink that water, but I bathe in it. That scares me now. You get a rash, you don't know if it's coming from the water.
Since the Labor Day weekend incident, at issue now, how the Department of Public Works responded to the crisis. DPW says they first tested the water during routine testing Friday, September 2nd, with 3 positive test results over the weekend. It wasn't until 7:43 Monday morning that the public was told on Twitter and Nextdoor. After that, DPW did not post an update for nearly 9 hours.
I think the city failed. I think the entire city failed with this.
The most critical time in a crisis is those first 24 hours.
And frankly, I'm disgusted on how those first 24 hours was handled.
City Councilman Yitzi Schleifer and his colleagues not holding back at a hearing 2 weeks ago when questioning DPW about its response to the water crisis. A second hearing scheduled Thursday. Residents in Harlem Park tonight.
I'll be safe. You know, what are you going to do about it?
With their own questions that they would ask DPW tomorrow.
Where did it come from? How did it come?
What would you be doing to fix it?
Water contaminated, got E. coli. You just jumped out there and said that. You give us water for a couple of days, and now it's solved. What did you do to solve it?
At the earlier hearing, DPW Director Jason Mitchell said the agency would examine what worked well and what didn't, and would implement changes where needed. We reached out to DPW today to learn what changes have been made since the hearing 2 weeks ago. A DPW spokesperson avoided our questions, instead directed us to the mayor's office. We reached out to the mayor's office. We asked, since that meeting, are you aware of any existing changes that have been made at DPW? If so, what are they? So far, we have not heard back. Well, that hearing is scheduled for 2 p.m. tomorrow here at City Hall. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. With the water contamination, just one of several problems we've seen from DPW lately. The department has seen problems with water billing for years. Fox 45 News has heard from several residents who have seen water bills in the thousands with no clear reason why the bill's so high. The department also had trouble with consistent trash and recycling pickup. Weekly recycling pickup has yet to return since the pandemic began. Councilman Yitzi Schleifer proposed fining the DPW director until it goes back to normal. The department has also had problems with its Back River wastewater treatment plant. The state took over that facility in March of this year after residents reported seeing floating solids in the river. And stay with Fox 45 News. We'll have complete coverage of tomorrow's hearing, both on air and online. Fox 45 News will continue to demand answers from DPW ourselves and hold leaders accountable for these ongoing problems.
Fox 45 is taking a closer look at just how much taxpayer money Baltimore City leaders are spending on travel. Among the most expensive trips, nearly $62,000 for a police training course in Boston and a $33,000 trip for Parks and Recs to a convention in Arizona.
And at some point, they have to say no. The Board of Estimates has to say no, and not just one time, but multiple times, because the city can't keep on spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on travel that just isn't needed.
Now, we've seen a few big travel bills come from City Council President Nick Mosby's office. Earlier this summer, Mr. Mosby himself spent $3,000 to attend a conference in Ocean City, more than double what others paid. His chief of staff used nearly $10,000 on a trip to England for an executive certification program. That money was approved retroactively, leading to questions about why the expense wasn't brought to the Board of Estimates before the trip was taken, which is a requirement of the city's travel policy. Mayor Brandon Scott responded to those questions in a statement claiming it could have been because of delays in authorization because of the city's transition to a new payment system.
Baltimore County Schools confirming a fight at Perry Hall High School during dismissal today. Baltimore County police say one juvenile was arrested in connection with that fight. Now, fights were a major problem at Baltimore County schools last year, if you remember. Fox 45 News obtained several videos and heard from many concerned parents after a number of violent fights broke out. And that's not the only issue parents brought to our attention last school year. Back in May, parents sent us pictures showing poor quality school lunches. Parents said schools served spoiled milk and moldy food. Now, tomorrow, county leaders will hold a town hall to talk about those problems and much more. Fox 45's Riel Creighton joins us live now with a look at what we can expect from that meeting. Riel?
Well, Mary, one community leader is hoping that this town hall will be a forum for parents to come together to share openly and honestly any issues that their kids may be having in Baltimore County schools. They're also holding on to hope that county school leadership will be listening.
It was vicious brawl after brawl caught on camera.
Torture, not only to him, but also to myself.
He's not safe.
he's not safe.
Parents flooding Fox 45 News with complaints.
No kid should ever have to go to school afraid of being attacked in school.
About violence or the threat of it in Baltimore County schools. But nearly all of these widely shared videos inside Baltimore County schools happened in the last school year.
It's every day. Every day I have parents reaching out to us.
Darren Badillo, a former candidate for Baltimore County Executive, acknowledges the district has taken measures to address the fighting and bullying.
First it was little fights.
But says he's still watching the situation escalate.
There was big fights, then it was weapons, now it's guns.
Thursday, the Baltimore County Parent-Student Coalition, Badillo, hosting a town hall, a forum for parents, he says, to focus on what they deem are still ongoing problems within Baltimore County schools. Everything from safety to school lunches.
It just seems like we're doing the bare minimum for our children as far as educating them, keeping them safe, and feeding them.
Fox 45 News and Project Baltimore have reached out to Baltimore County Schools leadership multiple times about in-school violence. In April, the superintendent sent us a statement explaining how school violence is a complex issue, adding the school system is taking approaches which include disciplinary action and social-emotional supports.
We have many parents that are just frustrated.
Badillo says they invited the superintendent and every member of the school board to tomorrow's town hall to hear from parents directly. And you can find more information about when and where this town hall is going to take place on our website at foxbaltimore.com. Meantime, Badillo says there will also be there resources for parents where they can turn if their child is facing an issue within the school system. Reporting live tonight, Riel Creighton, Fox 45 News.
Happening right now, the reward to help find the killer of Baltimore man R.A. Wolf has doubled while that manhunt continues. Avery Miller is now charged with killing Wolf in Washington, D.C. Wolf was installing solar panels last month. Miller was seen yesterday morning in Washington and is accused of shooting at police who tried to arrest him. Police say he got away. $55,000 is being offered for tips leading to his arrest and conviction. We have information on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
A Spotlight on America investigation reveals a mental health crisis among young people. An investigation into the growing need coming up after the break.
And Hurricane Ian is dumping heavy rain in Florida right now, but eventually it's going to be our next weather maker, upping our chances for some rain over the weekend. I'll explain exactly what it means for all your weekend plans in a couple of minutes on Fox 45 News at 10.
Breaking news tonight in the case of Adnan Syed, who was let out of prison just over a week ago. The family of Heyman Lee has filed notice. They plan to appeal the decision to vacate Syed's conviction, according to the Baltimore Banner. They had been disappointed over the communication from the city-state's attorney's office over the plans to pursue a reversal in the case and say their right to participate was violated. After more than 20 years of being told the killer of their daughter was behind bars, they are again seeking justice. Prosecutors have about 3 weeks to decide whether to retry Adnan Syed. We will follow that closely for you and have an update. Fox 45 News continues to track Hurricane Ian as it is moving inland and up sort of the coast. Check out this time lapse showing what a storm surge is really like. This is the ocean literally being pushed onto Sanibel Island. Wow, in just 30 minutes, enough water to partially cover up the crosswalk signs flows ashore. Meteorologist Amy Aronson tracking the potential impacts here of this storm. Amy?
Yeah, this storm has a ways to travel before it reaches us, and of course, Florida still in the thick of it now as it continues to spread over central parts of the state. What happens is after it leaves the ocean, it loses its fuel or its strength, what's strengthening it. And it also encounters a lot of friction moving over land, and you can see the result. It is spreading apart. It's starting to weaken. Still very strong, still producing max sustained winds up to 100 miles an hour, and still producing some very heavy rain. That heavy stuff is now pushing towards central parts of the state. The Orlando area next in line to see the heaviest rain and the flooding impacts and the strongest winds from the system. If we take a look at some of the rainfall estimates from the past 24 hours, I'm seeing some incredible numbers here. I pinned just a couple of them for you, but getting close to 20 inches of rainfall in some spots and still actively raining there right now with that ongoing flooding threat. So that area highlighted in white, that's the highest rainfall totals we're seeing already from this system. Not only are we dealing with strong winds and heavy rain, power outages also an issue. The area is highlighted in the bright red here, the dark red. That's where the highest power outages are now being reported, about 100,000 to 200,000 in some of these counties. And I think we're going to continue to see more red here in the path of that storm as it continues to travel northeastward across the state of Florida. And that's exactly what we're expecting over the next 24 hours. It's actually not until tomorrow evening that this storm weakens to a tropical storm and moves back out into the water, actually this time out into the Atlantic. It should not strengthen much once it moves offshore there because it just wraps around and pushes into the southeast, into the Carolinas. Then it looks like South Carolina's in for some very heavy rain, also some very strong winds. As this storm moves through the southeast, it'll continue to weaken, and it looks like we'll now see the first showers from this as early as late Friday night, around 11 o'clock Friday night. We see the showers push in, and some really soaking rain comes our way overnight Friday through very early Saturday morning. So this is what we wake up to Saturday morning. Not a pretty scene, a soggy scene, and that's just the start of all the wet weather that's going to move through this weekend. Here's a quick look at how much rain we're expecting as we get into the weekend. Nothing for the next 2 days, but you'll notice as we add Saturday and Sunday to the mix, some locations get awfully close to an inch of rain. So the weekend doesn't look pretty. Steady rain Saturday and Sunday with highs in the cooler upper 60s. Same for Monday with a few lingering showers. But after that, we'll finally dry out and say goodbye to what's left of Ian. And the fall-like cooler temperatures are here to stay. We'll stay in the upper 60s all the way through midweek. Mary?
Amy, thank you. Well, throughout this year, Spotlight on America has been highlighting a mental health crisis among young people. As their needs have soared, the resources to help them have failed to keep up, especially in schools. Tonight, Chris Daniels presses one congressional leader about the need.
We put our kids in car seats. We talk all about drunk driving at prom time, but we're not willing to talk about the second leading cause of death.
She's talking about suicide. Mom Stephanie Simpson knows it well. She rushed her child to the ER for suicidal thoughts at the age of just 9 as he grappled with a severe case of OCD.
He was completely debilitated. He could be.
Stephanie did whatever she could to help him, ultimately moving her husband and son out of state because it was the only place to get him the extensive treatment he needed.
That's where they learned for him to be able to sleep through the night, to brush his teeth, to eat again, to take a shower, because all of those he was too terrified to do.
Her son is one of millions of children in this country currently battling devastating mental health challenges. And for many families like Stephanie's, the resources they desperately need are not available. According to the CDC, only 1 in 5 kids with mental, emotional, or behavioral disorders are receiving care from a specialized mental health care provider. That's a deeply troubling statistic that has captured the attention of Congress, including Washington Representative Kim Schreier, one of only 2 female physicians in Congress.
We just don't have enough counselors, social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists to treat the degree of mental illness that we're seeing in our kids right now.
Schreier knows that sometimes those resources are most needed in the classroom. So she teamed up with the other female physician in Congress, Iowa's Marionette Miller Meeks, on a bill that boosted behavioral health spending in schools.
If we value our children, as I do, then this should get abundant funding because we have a crisis on our hands.
Their bill secured $300 million for mental health support for kids in schools. That's part of the $1 billion already coming to schools from the infrastructure bill signed by President Biden.
Are the actions of Congress right now enough to ensure that kids are getting the mental health they need?
It's certainly a huge increase, but we know that the need is unprecedented for what kids need in schools. We do face a challenge of having the workforce to scale up rapidly, and that's part of the challenge.
And that problem cannot be fixed with money alone, says Hannah Wesolowski with the National Alliance on Mental Illness. She says it may require innovative ideas to draw more qualified mental health workers into schools.
I think loan repayment programs, loan forgiveness programs are going to be essential to increase that pipeline. All teachers and school personnel should receive more training to be aware.
What's at stake here for kids as time passes?
Lives. Frankly, lives are what is at stake.
For moms like Stephanie, whose son is now stable but will require continuous care, there's a clear need to raise not just more money and resources, but awareness about the mental health crisis impacting this country's kids.
Do you think the country realizes the magnitude of the need here?
No. People are really fearful of talking about mental health. Mental health is a health issue, right? It's life or death.
I'm Chris Daniels for Spotlight on America.
And coming up on the late edition, turning up the heat at a Maryland Crab Fest. How a celebration brought out the claws of 2 gubernatorial hopefuls. A step in the right direction, Ravens All-Pro left tackle Ronnie Stanley practicing in full for the first time in a long time. How it's looking for Sunday against the Bills coming up next.
As the O's postseason push continues, rookie Gunnar Henderson picked up a national honor from Baseball America, being named Minor League Baseball Player of the Year, but his focus, as well as the team's, that's on another accolade. How about a wild card berth? It's not out of reach yet. O's still fighting 3.5 games back of that final spot entering the night. Bottom 3, Abraham Almonte at the dish, and he gives that ball a ride, puts Boston up 2. Robinson Chirinos would homer to center in the 8th, but that's all the Birds would get. O's fall in this one, 3-1. We'll have an update on where they stand in the wild card. Ronnie Stanley was a full participant in practice for the first time since September of last year. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll play this week. What it does mean is that Stanley's return could be near, and who knows, we might even see him Sunday getting reps.
It's what we see, certainly, and what he feels. I mean, those are two things that both have to be taken into account. You know, Ronnie's not going to want to go out there, and we're not going to want him to go out there if feels like he's going to be good. You know, he's going to be ready to go. I think it's a priority to go out there and be at his best when he comes back. At the same time, he's going to have to jump in at some point, you know, so could be this week. We'll just have to see. He's practiced quite a bit today, and we'll see where it's at, you know, now and then tomorrow and then Friday, and make a decision.
I mean, that's more promising than it has been. Coming up tonight, we're talking JPP with John Harbaugh is saying about the Ravens' newest addition, plus a look at the wild card standings when Sports Unlimited returns.
155-mile-an-hour winds are incredibly dangerous. There will be debris in the air and flooding powerful enough to move cars around.
Ahead on the late edition, damage and devastation as Hurricane Ian moves through Florida. Plus, this Johns Hopkins website may have saved thousands of lives in the early stages of the pandemic. How the scientist behind the data is now being recognized.
Hurricane Ian makes its way through Florida, leaving a trail of flooding and destruction. Fox 45 News assesses the damage as that storm weakens, but still moves inland toward Maryland. Another shooting rocks the heart of Fells Point. Residents share their fears as diners sit inches away from bullet holes in walls. And the Department of Public Works back in the spotlight for its E. coli response ahead of another grilling from the City Council. What residents want answered at hearing number 2.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson. We continue to follow 2 big stories tonight. Another shooting in Fells Point leaves residents shaken and asking for answers. But we begin with the devastation from Hurricane Ian. Homes and businesses flooding and boats knocked off their posts. In fact, one man brave enough to chase his vessel down.
They came over here. I tied it up here, put all the bumpers out, and she was fine. I thought she would ride out the storm here. But the winds were just too big. They came in and they overpowered the vents on the other side.
Well, that video coming in so far has been absolutely stunning. On the top left, a traffic light knocked over in front of a police cruiser. On the top right, that's Deep Creek, Florida. Video just in says it got dark tonight, showing driving rain and bad damage. And on the bottom left, Port Charlotte also slammed by the high winds. Some homes were also ripped apart. We can also see Hurricane Ian's path as it continues up the Gulf Coast. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is here tracking that path. And Amy, we saw that guy with the boat. I don't want to judge, but that would be my last concern, worrying about a boat in that storm.
Yeah, definitely not the thing to do in this situation. And we are still tracking some very dangerous impacts from this storm. Far from over, although it has weakened some, it's actually now at max sustained winds of 90 miles an hour. And that continues to weaken in strength from Category 2 to now 1 because it is moving over land. That means it's lost its fuel, and that's the warm water of the ocean. Plus, it's encountering land, which is friction, and that's causing it to spread out and fall apart. Still producing some very strong winds, though, and still producing some very heavy rain. That heavy rain is now shifting into central parts of the state. Orlando in for a very rough night there. Of course, it made landfall at 3:05 this afternoon near Cayo Costa, Florida, with max sustained winds at 150 miles an hour at that point as a Category 4 hurricane. And that puts it on this top list of strongest hurricanes to hit Florida. If you take a look at the list, it ties for number 4, actually, with the number of storms with the max sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. Now, coming up in about 10 minutes, I've got an updated look at the track of Ian, where it's headed next, and what it eventually means for us right here in Maryland. Kai?
Amy, thank you. We'll see you then. Meantime, we have breaking news tonight in the case of Adnan Syed, who was just let out of prison just over a week ago. The family of Heyman Lee has filed notice. They plan to appeal that decision to vacate Syed's conviction. They are disappointed over what they consider a lack of communication from the city state's attorney's office over plans to pursue a reversal in the case, and say their right to participate was violated. After more than 20 years of being held and told the killer of their loved one was behind bars, the Lee family is seeking justice. Prosecutors have about 3 weeks to decide whether to retry Adnan Syed. They are waiting for some DNA evidence.
No, it starts to bother you after a while, being in this neighborhood, and you can't walk out your door without anger or violence.
A dozen people shot in Baltimore over the past 24 hours alone, including a double shooting in northeast Baltimore tonight, and yet another violent outburst rocks Fells Point. Fox 45's Jeff Abel is looking into the concerns in that neighborhood.
Well, no one can quite explain it, but once again, gunfire has rocked the community of Fells Point, and tonight, one man is fighting for his life. In the heart of Fells Point today, there were signs of a very violent time. Shattered glass, damaged doors, and nearby sat 4 diners who had never been to Baltimore before.
Definitely wasn't expecting it to kind of be in the center of the city.
It was just after midnight when bullets started flying on this block of South Broadway. When officers arrived, they found a man shot in the head and a 35-year-old woman shot in the arm. And the suspects were long gone.
They all fled south on Broadway towards Spain.
So far, there's no arrest and no motive for the shooting. But the incident is the latest in a string of attacks in this community. 3 months ago, 30-year-old Marco Nunez was gunned down while leaving a bar a block away. A 16-year-old is now accused of his murder.
Now everybody is a little bitter and angry. They come out to have a good time. but they carry their problems with them wherever they go.
We need to be outraged.
Fells Point realtor Claudia Tolles believes the city is growing accustomed to the violence and fears city leaders are doing little to stop it.
These kinds of incidents are being normalized because of their silence, because of their lack of outrage, because of their lack of action.
For now, one victim is fighting for his life as this community fights to understand why.
I'm going to keep everybody in prayer, and I hope everything work out.
All of this is happening as the Fells Point Festival prepares to launch this weekend. Tonight, police are telling us they will be assigning additional officers to ensure everyone at the festival is safe. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Well, police are also looking for at least 2 shooters after a quadruple shooting in northeast Baltimore last night. It happened along Bowley's Lane. Police say shooters fled in a vehicle, but they don't have a description. All 4 victims are recovering. Anyone with information is asked to call Baltimore City Police or Metro Crime Stoppers. Well, as the violence continues, city council members press Baltimore police on their summer crime response. Councilman Mark Conway says police response has been often reactionary, saying it seems to him like the Baltimore Police Department is shifting resources instead of fixing shortages. As of now, efforts from the city are mostly focused on the Western District.
This isn't like giving out Christmas gifts. I want my Christmas gift. When will everyone get their gift of a perfectly safe neighborhood? I can't say. I would love for that to happen yesterday.
Well, a statement from Mayor Brandon Scott's office claims it's misguided to say any neighborhood is taking priority over other neighborhoods.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
A Baltimore County State Park manager has been arrested on charges of sexual assault. 71-year-old Michael Browning faces 7 counts of rape or assault. Police say he committed those crimes while employed by the Maryland Park Service. Browning is the manager of Gunpowder Falls State Park, and police say those assaults allegedly happened on park property. Anybody with information about this case or any other potential victims asked to call Baltimore County Special Victims Unit at the number right there on your screen. Kai?
Mary, thank you. Also breaking tonight, iconic rapper Coolio has died. Coolio was a mainstay in the 90s music rap scene, perhaps best known for his hit Gangsta's Paradise in 1995. His manager says he died at his home in Los Angeles. No cause of death has been released. Coolio was 59 years old. Well, crabs, clams, and politics in Crisfield. How a friendly gathering turned into heated dialogue from the 2 men vying to become Maryland's next governor. And we're tracking Hurricane Ian's path up the Florida coast. Here's a live look right now in Tampa, Florida. More updates from meteorologist Amy Aronson coming up. Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, Maryland is going to need a new area code sometime in the future. According to the Maryland Public Service Commission, phone numbers are running out in the 240 and 301 area codes, and the state is about to implement an area code 227. Now, those two current codes include parts of 11 counties, and numbers are expected to run out sometime in the spring of 2023. And of course, Fox 45 will keep you updated on that. Number two, a crab feast on Maryland's Eastern Shore is becoming a key political stop for gubernatorial hopefuls. Governor Larry Hogan first went to Crisfield as a long shot candidate in 2014. He says the camaraderie at the event gave him a chance to win. Today, candidate Wes Moore and candidate Dan Cox were in attendance, but bipartisanship wasn't on the menu.
For my definition of patriotism was leaving my family and going with the 82nd Airborne and leading paratroopers in Afghanistan. And my opponent's definition of patriotism was putting on a baseball cap and asking people to join him as they went to the Capitol to contest a legal election.
He wants to export the Baltimore crime throughout the state. He's against the police. He said not only does he want to defund the police, he wants to indict the system.
Well, the political banner is only expected to heat up with Election Day a little less than 6 weeks away. Mail-in ballots will start going out tomorrow. The Department of Public Works faces questions over its handling of Baltimore's E. coli contamination, the biggest concerns from residents before tomorrow's second hearing.
And Ian is still dumping heavy rain in Florida. Southeast is next, and then it heads towards Maryland. Here's a preview of what it's going to do to our rain chances over the weekend. Coming up in a couple of minutes, I'll explain exactly what this means for all your outdoor weekend plans.
We're following the path of Hurricane Ian as it moves its way up the eastern seaboard. This was the scene in Naples, Florida this afternoon. Firefighters had to salvage items from a smoking truck after water got into electrical equipment. Amy Aronson is standing by for an update. She'll see us in about 3 minutes. Breaking news right now. 2 teenagers are shot in northeast Baltimore. This is a scene where Moravia and Moravia Park roads meet. Now, we're told the victims are just 15 and 17 years of age, both shot in the lower halves of their body. It's not clear how bad those injuries are at this time, and there is no lookout for a gunman at this time, but we will share his description as soon as we have one available. The Baltimore City Council is set to hold a second hearing on the E. coli contamination in city water. Now, during that first hearing, council members were critical of the response from the Department of Public Works. Keith Daniels takes us through what residents want to hear this time around.
Well, City Councilman Yitzi Schleifer has said he will hold those hearings here at City Hall until all of his questions and concerns are addressed by DPW. And tonight, some residents are also looking for the agency to be held accountable. In the Harlan Park neighborhood in West Baltimore, residents recovering from water woes.
Should I drink it? Is it going to make me sick?
Some of them still unsure about the quality of the tap water in their homes, nearly a month after the E. coli water contamination scare in the community.
I will not drink that water, but I bathe in it. That scares me now. You know, you get a rash, you don't know if it's coming from the water.
Since the Labor Day weekend incident, at issue now, how the Department of Public Works responded to the crisis. DPW says they first tested the water during routine testing Friday, September 2nd, with 3 positive test results over the weekend. It wasn't until 7:43 Monday morning that the public was told on Twitter and Nextdoor. After that, DPW did not post an update for nearly 9 hours.
I think the city failed. I think the entire city failed with this.
The most critical time in a crisis is those first 24 hours. And frankly, I'm disgusted on how those first 24 hours was handled.
City Councilman Yitzi Schleifer and his colleagues not holding back at a hearing 2 weeks ago when questioning DPW about its response to the water crisis. A second hearing scheduled Thursday. Residents in Harlan Park tonight.
I'll be safe. You know, what are you going to do about it?
With their own questions that they would ask DPW tomorrow.
Where did it come from? How did it come? What would you be doing to fix it?
Water contaminated, got E. coli. You just jumped out there and said that. You give us water for a couple of days and now it's solved. What did you do to solve it?
At the earlier hearing, DPW Director Jason Mitchell said the agency would examine what worked well and what didn't, and would implement changes where needed. We reached out to DPW today to learn what changes have been made since the hearing 2 weeks ago. A DPW spokesperson avoided our questions, instead directed us to the mayor's office. We reached out to the mayor's office. We asked, since that meeting, are you aware of any existing changes that have been made at DPW? If so, what are they? So far, we have not heard back. Well, that hearing is scheduled for 2 p.m. tomorrow here at City Hall. Reporting tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Hurricane Ian slowly works its way up the Florida Gulf Coast. Check out this time lapse from Sanibel Island. That's near Fort Myers. Well, Amy, it's a really unbelievable scene across Florida. And we do want to ask, what kind of effect could we see here? Will it be mild, a little more severe? What do you think?
More mild than what we're seeing there, Kai. That's really scary. That storm surge is that rushing ocean water just taking over very, very quickly. And you can see how fast it is, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Moves in very, very quickly. And look at that. The street signs are
just
almost
underwater.
Covered. Yeah, if we wait till the end of that loop, they're pretty much completely covered. And that's the power of water, folks. And that's the problem that we are seeing with Ian. That's just problem number one. Also, just some very heavy rain, also resulting in some flooding. Couple of flood warnings still posted here, along with some very strong winds. Now, it has weakened as it continues to move on land here, and that's what we'd expect to happen. It's down to Category 1 in strength, producing max winds now at 90 miles an hour, but still a strong storm as it moves through central parts of Florida. Orlando in line next to get some of this very heavy rain. The bright oranges and reds you're seeing here on the radar, that's some really heavy rain along with some really strong winds. And here's a look back at some of the incredible rainfall totals we've seen so far along the shoreline here, just north of Port Charlotte. Close to 20 inches of rainfall in some spots, and that's leaving behind a path of destruction. Also, power outages, big concern. I broke this down by percentages for you, county by county here. You'll notice some counties are close to 100%. That means 100% dealing with power outages right now. The bright purples and the dark reds, that's where we're seeing the most. And the highest power outages, I have a feeling that's going to spread along with the path of this storm. And this storm is expected to continue traveling northeastward across the state of Florida, not moving back out into the ocean until tomorrow evening. After that, it becomes a tropical storm, and then it heads for the Carolinas. Another landfall expected as a tropical storm for South Carolina come Friday. And we've already got some tropical storm warnings posted for the shoreline there. Heavy rain, strong winds will be an issue. And then let's head towards Maryland. Looks like by Friday night now, late Friday night, we see the first showers associated with this system. And then here comes some soaking rain by Saturday morning. And that's just the start of a very soggy weekend. Not tracking severe weather, fortunately, from this system, but we are tracking steady rain on Saturday, just a washout of a day. On and off showers will linger on Sunday. Not pretty looking for the Ravens game, with temperatures also in the cooler upper 60s. Monday, we are still dealing with a few showers as the system finally starts to wrap out of here. Now, I want to back up and talk about your bus stop forecast for tomorrow. Haven't talked a whole lot about that because we have been dealing mostly with Ian tonight. But look at the temperatures at drop-off time. Don't forget to send the kids with a jacket tomorrow morning. Definitely going to need it. It's going to be a breezy day with a mix of clouds and sun, and temperatures will be on the cooler side again with highs in the mid and upper 60s. We've got 2 more dry days ahead of us before what's left of Ian arrives right here in Maryland. We'll start to see some showers arrive late Friday night, and I think the heaviest rain actually comes through early Saturday morning with on and off showers throughout the afternoon. Looks like this system will take its sweet old time rotating out of here. Some scattered showers will continue through Sunday, actually left behind with some spotty showers even into Monday. It's not until Tuesday that we say goodbye to Ian finally, and after that, our cool fall-like stretch will continue. We've got a long stretch, actually, of the mid and upper 60s that will take us through midweek next week, along with some pretty cool nights. Kai?
Amy, thank you. Stay with Fox 45 News. Our team of meteorologists, including Amy, will continue to track the storm as it moves toward our area. Plus, our Megan Gillen will have live reports from Tampa, Florida. She's down there right now. Wake up with Fox 45 Morning News for the very latest. We'll be right back. All right, we continue to see amazing pictures and images coming in from social media from Hurricane Ian down in Florida. Let's take a look at some of them quickly. I want you to look at this, folks. This is sustained winds here. Look at the front, the hood of this truck. Looks like they're kind of parked outside, but look at the speed of the wind and the rain there. That's sustained winds. Remember, they were clocked at one point around 150 miles an hour. That's deadly. You just cannot survive in wind speeds like that. Current situation at our hotel. That's a hotel in Port Charlotte, just north of Fort Myers. And here we have, again, look at how much flooding and water damage the state of Florida is going to have to deal with. This could exceed the devastation and cost of Hurricane Andrew, which hit in 1992 and is one of the most deadly and just devastating storms the state has ever seen. There are others, obviously, on record just as big. But this is going to be a really monster storm for the state to deal with. Our hearts go out to these folks in Florida. Meantime, here's a look at tomorrow's headlines. The Department of Public Works in Baltimore has another hearing to discuss the city's E. coli crisis and response. Johns Hopkins University is holding a virtual meeting to hear public comment on its plan for a private police force. This week's meeting is virtual after protesters shut down the meeting last week. And a coalition of parents and students of Baltimore County schools will host a town hall on the issues facing the school system so far this year. Well, he's here. Jason Pierre-Paul on the field with the Ravens for the very first time. What Coach John Harbaugh is saying about the Super Bowl champion following practice. Well, that's all for us on the late edition tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Kai Jackson. Here's Rocco DeSangro with Sports Unlimited. Hi, Rocco.
What's going on, Kai? 3.5 games separated the O's in that final wild card berth entering the night. Right now, all they can do is win and hope that the three teams in front of them lose. That's easier said than done. The long sleeves were out in Boston as October quickly approaches. While the players warmed up, the O's bats did the exact opposite. Red Sox jumped out to an early first-inning lead. Alex Verdugo with an RBI single to center. Boston strikes first. Let's go to the bottom of the third. Abraham Almonte gives that ball a ride. His first of the year puts Boston up 2 to the 6th. Verdugo going to do some more damage. Hits a laser down the right field line. Anywhere else, that's in the yard. Boston, it's a pesky pull home run. Kramer went 5 innings, allowing 3 earned on 6 hits. The O's bats didn't really help him out. Robinson Chirinos homered to center in the 8th, but that's all the Birds would get. O's drop a tough one. 3-1 the final score.
Yeah, I still think there's a chance. We were like 3 games back. I think Toronto lost or is losing or something like that. With 3 games back, I mean, anything's possible. We still got 7 games left.
We still have a chance, and that's the only thing you can ask for. 7 games to go, 3.5. Hopefully Seattle lose tonight, and we're still 3.5 tomorrow, and go and trying to win the next 7 games. You never know.
So here's where the O's stack up right now in the wild card. Toronto, Tampa, and Seattle hold the top 3 spots. The Rays and Jays both lost. Seattle currently in action. O's 4 games back of that final wild card spot with 7 to go. On Sunday, running back J.K. Dobbins made his long-awaited return to the football field, practicing in full leading up to the game against the Pats. But Dobbins was limited today, coming up on the injury report with a chest issue. We'll have an update on his status coming up tomorrow. There's a chance Michael Pierce's 2022 season gets cut short, and that stinks, but there's a chance that he also plays it out. John Harbaugh confirmed Pierce tore his biceps in the win over the Patriots. The nose tackle will either have surgery and be shut down or play through it. Right now, the decision hasn't been made, and Harbaugh said it's up to Pierce. Since we're talking defense, the Ravens added some talent and depth at pass rusher. Wednesday marked Jason Pierre-Paul's first practice as a Raven. JPP and his 91 career sacks could be on the field as soon as Sunday to get after Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
He looked good today. We didn't take. He took a number of reps. I don't think he took every rep, but he took as many reps out there as we had for him, and he looked good. We'll see the tape. The process is to get him out there as fast as we can. So we'll shoot for this week. We'll see.
So today the NFL announced its weekly awards: offense, defense, special teams. Lamar Jackson, you can see him throwing a couple his touchdowns. He was not named AFC Offensive Player of the Week after his 5-touchdown performance at New England. Instead, it went to Jacksonville quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence accounted 44 more yards through the air with no turnovers and a better rating, but only 3 passing touchdowns, and nowhere near Jackson's 107 rushing yards. Jackson, he did win the Nickelodeon Valuable Player, MVP, for Week 3 and got to pour slime on his teammates. Something Trevor Lawrence didn't get to do. That's it for this edition of Sports Unlimited. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.